it finally stopped raining. We've had a pretty rainy stretch. We had a
Yeah.
nice,
The rain
yeah.
has been terrible. My son works for the Phillies, so he,
Oh,
yeah,
got
so he
doubleheader
gave
today now, right?
doubleheader today. He left at 9 a.m. He was up at like 7. I was like, I don't think you've been up since 7 since grade school. So, yeah.
Got a School of Hard Knocks. Okay, it is 11 a.m. My time, noon Eastern. We can go through all the time zones, but it's top of the hour. And every couple of weeks, we try to get everybody together for what we call our Sequence 101 Basics workshop. I am super fortunate and excited. By the way, I'm Kevin. I'm the community guy for Sequence. I'm super excited to be joined by Nick Sistler, who will be our master of ceremonies today. Nick, welcome, and also want to make sure that I shout out Tara and Colin from our customer service team who are also hanging out on the call. So welcome everybody.
Indeed, indeed. Great to see you, Kevin. Yeah, happy to get started because I know you've got a firm stop at 45 or 15
I
today.
have my daughter will gripe at me if I miss her graduation.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we
we
do
don't
have a
want to
hard
do
stop
that.
at 45.
We don't want to do that. So we'll fly through this. But yeah, happy to get started. And the goal today, I'm going to share my screen here. Goal today is really to spend just a few minutes kind of going over what is Sequence, what are some of the successes that we're seeing people have, and then really diving into real world cases because we want to spend this time building so you guys can actually see how it's done because we tend to have people joining this that are in different stages of their process. Some people are still exploring if Sequence could work for them. Other people are just getting started. Other people are coming back for a refresher. So we want to make this as applicable as possible. And so part of that means feel free to chime in. So we've got a couple people in the chats. Like we want to make this as engaging as possible. This is not Nick Talks for the next 43 minutes. I'm happy to, but much more enjoyable if we have people asking questions. So do not hesitate to drop anything in the chat there because we want to make sure this is helpful as possible for all of you. So with that, I will get started so that we can make sure Kevin gets to his daughter's graduation in time. Um, so what is Sequence? Y'all probably know this, but if you don't, we're all about trying to help you visualize and automate your money flow, right? There's plenty of budgeting tools out there. I've tried them all. Still use a few of them just because I love to dabble in this stuff. But all budgeting tools are typically looking out the rear view mirror. There's some power in that, right? We can understand where we're spending our money, but we're trying to take that proactive step of helping you control where your money is actually going to go in the future so that we can accomplish our goals, not just looking in the past. And so we're helping you set up your smart rules, moving the money effortlessly and really building that financial security without the constant effort and hours that it tends to take, especially if you're running a business. So what we like to start with is kind of explain there's really three tiers of users that we see. Forget about what level of service you sign up for. Three kind of like different cohorts is maybe a better term of how people use it. We've got people using it for the basic money movement. So maybe they want to start their first emergency fund or are trying to be more consistent about how they're saving for their future, or maybe it's just paying off some debt. Or like after that, we've got people using more advanced budgeting. That's actually a sample shot of how I have our Sequence account set up for my household. So we tend to take more of like a waterfall type of approach, making sure that the emergency fund is always topped up, doing our recurring expenses, then to our fund money, and then make sure everything else is cascading down to the 529s, to the investment plans, to the, buying our future vacation house, like all of those different pieces so that we're starting to be a little bit more complex with the budgeting. But then we've got the people who are going absolutely doing some amazing work and building out hundreds of pods or sub accounts so that they can have every single one of their line item expenses automated, paid for. I'm never going to get to that space. Some of you all might. Don't worry if you don't get there, but we've got some unbelievable use cases that we see people using every single day. And just to give you a quick idea, because I know this is all about, trying to understand, is this worth it? We're seeing some unbelievable results. And like this is one of our users, Dave, paid off $41,000 in debt in the first 7 months of using it and added an extra $1,000 of new savings per month. So it's $12,000 per year. And you think about what that compounds to over the next 5, 10, 20 years and literally cut his debt in half. And when you think about everybody's New Year's resolutions, being better with your money, reducing debt are typically some of the most common pieces out there besides losing weight. And so people are actually doing that. And then we have James, who saved $5,000 in his first 2 months, saved 2 hours per week, which is wild, and then automated an extra $2,000 per month. So again, we're having some unbelievable real world successes, and we're constantly getting letters. We call them love letters. I think that's kind of a funny name, but constantly getting letters like this from our users. So you might have some frustration at the beginning because obviously we got to set this stuff up and we got to understand what you want to do with your money, because doing better with our money is one thing, but actually understanding what needs to take place to get to the spot that you want to be is another discussion and what we're trying to accomplish today. But once you actually do that, it's unbelievable some of the success that you guys can have in taking control over your finances. So, quick background. My entire career has been in personal finance, both as an advisor, coaching advisors, have three startups myself, one exit in the fintech space, and then also worked on Vanguard's innovation team. So love this space, love helping people with their finances. And so that's why I'm excited to talk with you all today. And here's how sequence works. It's really kind of four steps, and in reality, it's three because the fourth step is sit back and relax. But the first step is connecting your accounts. Again, many of you probably have already done that. Maybe you haven't, but we'll show you. We use pretty common technology called Plaid. It's going to connect all of your existing accounts, your bank accounts, your investment accounts, and any liabilities that you want to add in. We then need to determine your goals. Again, right? What do we want to accomplish? Because it's one thing to say we want to do better, but what do we actually want to do? Is it paying off our debt? Is it saving more money? Is it making sure that our emergency fund is set up? Is it making sure that payroll's there and then we're building a business emergency fund? All of these different pieces we need to figure out. Then we're creating the rules to accomplish those goals, and then we let the system automate and take care of it. So I'm talking a mile a minute, making sure that Kevin's daughter gets her dad at graduation. But with that, I want to dive into our next section, which is really just building. And so we're going to go through two different scenarios here. We're going to start with our business owner, the entrepreneur, James here. Business owner wants to separate his business and personal finances because we have so many of our users are either working a W-2 job and have a side hustle or have their own business and are doing well, but are swamped in the business and struggling to get themselves out of the day-to-day operations and be able to think about it. So us freeing up a couple hours per week and saving them the mental frustration that comes with managing your finances can be a huge unlock for so many of them. So that's what we're going to dive into. And I want to kind of paint the scene here for what we're going to go through in this setup. We've got a business that's making about $30,000 per month. When it comes to what he wants to accomplish, it's really about making sure that taxes are set aside because that's one of the biggest things, right? I have a S corp myself, I've obviously run a few businesses. Setting aside money for taxes is a huge piece because nobody wants that surprise in April with the tax bill. So making sure that the tax savings is automated. We want to make sure that $3,000 a month is set aside for the business expenses. We want to make sure that there's a rule like if he makes more than $20,000, because this is a seasonal business, right? Incomes fluctuate. So if it's less than $20,000, he wants to pay himself $5,000. And if he's getting more than $20,000 in any particular month, he's going to pay himself 50% of it. And then that's after the business expenses are taken out. Wants to make sure that $15,000 is always in the business checking account and that the remaining funds are going to the business savings so that we can make sure that he's all set. So I will take a quick pause as I switch over to my other screen, but wanted to see if there are any questions right now. Please do not hesitate to put something in the chat, or if there's anything that you guys want to make sure that we discuss while we're going through this, because I cut that time for that PowerPoint deck in about half so that we could make sure that we're good to go.
Yeah, we don't have anything just yet, Nick, but I'll keep an eye on it.
Okay, great. And you can see my sequence page now, right, Kevin?
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. So what I did to save us all some time was already connect our accounts here. So I've taken one extra step. In reality, what you guys are going to do, if you have not used Sequence before, you're going to use this little connection button right here. This is connecting your external accounts. And you're going to go through and you're going to either select your banking accounts, you're going to select your investment accounts, potentially liability accounts, and our destination accounts are simply if you know an account and a routing number, like you maybe want to pay your landlord, or maybe one of the companies that you work with just wants you to send money to them directly into their bank account, you can manually add those accounts. We call them destination accounts. I have gone through that process already just to save us because it takes a couple minutes, but it's pulled in a couple different personal accounts, a checking, a high yield savings, a business checking account, as well as an HSA, a 401k, and then a couple credit items, a loan, a line of credit, and a credit card. So hopefully that makes sense so far. So let me do this. I'm actually going to try to see if I can bring both screens onto the same page. And let me um, do this. I will stop sharing for a moment and bring this all up to my big monitor so that we can operate that way. And we'll share again. Share. Okay, great. Can you guys see everything now? We've got the,
Looks we can.
okay, cool. Hopefully it's not too small. Um, so this way we can start to map it out together. So what we're going to always start with after we have our accounts synced, we're going to click the little plus button and we're going to create an income source. And an income source is simply a checking account that we can open up for you or your business. So when you're going through the onboarding process and setting up your sequence account, you're going through what's called KYC. It's know your customer. And if you have a business and you signed up for a business account, you're going through KYB, know your business. That's where we ask for your social security, your date of birth, all of those pieces. That's because it's banking regulations, right? We're able to open up accounts for you and help you move this money around. We need you to go through that process for all of the wonderful reasons of anti-money laundering and making sure you're really you and there isn't fraud here. In this case, I have this account set up for an individual as well as a business. So we've got Nick Franklin and Nick Enterprises. And so since we're doing a business case, I'm going to select Nick Enterprises and we're going to call this business income. I'm going to create the income source. And just like that, it's opening a new account for me, this little blue box. And so you'll see it has a real routing number, a real account number. This is a real checking account. And this is going to be ideally the destination for all your accounts receivable with your business. You might be using Bank of America or any other bank that you're currently using. No problem. We can actually send money into this account. Or what a lot of our users do is actually end up having all of their new deposits going into this account. And if you're an individual and you're just having a normal W-2 paycheck or maybe you're 1099 but you just have your bank, you can instantly use our salary deposit switch, which integrates with a bunch of different HR platforms, which allow you to change your destination for your bank account to this account. Or you can click the generate direct deposit PDF. That'll open up this PDF that you need to print out, sign, hand to your HR department. And this shows you, hey, this is where I want my money deposited so that we can now route the money correctly. Again, you don't need to use this, but we highly recommend it because it allows you a lot more rules and it allows us to instantly move money as opposed to waiting for it to deposit into your checking account and then us having to pull it and waiting 2 days and then us having to send it and wait 2 days. It just makes the process a lot quicker, a lot easier, and gives you more options. So once we have the business income set up, the next step is about creating pods. And pods is a silly name, but we're a bunch of developers on our team, so we use coding language. It's just additional checking accounts that we're able to create for you. Think of these as intermediaries so we can start to stream out your money. So you might be a fan of Ramit Sethi and his conscious spending plan or the 50-30-20 budget strategy. All of those things, these are just intermediaries where we can send money and then ultimately send it to your current bank. Or you can use it as a checking account. Like I've changed all of my bank accounts. I used to have 8 at Capital One, 4 at Capital One, 4 at PNC. But now that we have physical debit cards as well as virtual debit cards, my family and I have switched all of ours to our actual sequence accounts because the money's instantly there. But let's do this because we want to make sure that we are able to build John's setup here. So in this case, I'm going to create a new item. I'm going to click on the pod, and then I'm going to name this. The first one he wants to take care of is tax. Let's do tax savings. If I can spell, that always helps out. So tax savings is one. We need one for business expenses. We need one for owner's pay because we want to make sure he's getting paid. And I don't know, maybe in the chat would be a good time for anybody. Let us know. Are you working a job like the normal consistent paycheck? Are you a business owner? Would love to kind of get a vibe for where everybody is in their own journey and where they're working. After that, we've got the business expenses already taken care of. Great. And then business savings.
Hey Nick,
Yeah.
when you get to a stopping point, we do have a question from Clark from the perspective of a financial advisor. So
Yeah.
I don't want to break your momentum, but just let me know when you get to a good stopping place, and I'll ask.
You bet. And I'll give us the early disclaimer of no longer a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, just giving everybody tips and tricks on how to use this, but I will happily lend my my 2 cents when it comes to different aspects. But not a financial advisor, not financial advice. But we'll do our best to assist and give some good guidelines. So in this situation, we've got this set up, right? And as you can see, I'm kind of moving left to right. That's how I like to make my maps, kind of seeing the money flow across the screen. So in this case, what we're going to do now that we have everything set up, we're going to click and drag because this is how we create rules. And especially for our business owners, this isn't necessarily the same for individuals who are getting a consistent biweekly paycheck. But for our business owners, one of the biggest things is every month's different, right? It might be fluctuating income. So when it comes to your taxes, we always want to set money aside instantly, right? We want to move that money away so that it's not something that we're thinking about when it comes to budgeting for the future. So I always like to use our trigger by incoming funds. That means that this is going to run every single time money hits this account instantly. So it could be $5, it could be 50,000 or 500,000. This rule will run. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put 30% into tax savings, click save, and then I'm done. So now every single time money hits this account and is received, we're setting aside money for the taxes. Now I'm going to click and drag another rule, and I'm going to start to do the rest of our process here. Because what I could do, I can always click on my existing rule and add more rules to it using this little blue box. But what I'm going to do, and what I tend to recommend for a lot of our business owners, is do the taxes instantly. And then the rest of the process is typically going to be built on more of a time-based schedule so that we can even out that fluctuating income. So now to show you that possibility and that option, I'm going to do trigger by date. And you'll note I dragged it to our business expenses just so that we can kind of build in order. So I'm going to trigger by date. And it's going to ask me, how often do I want to do this? Do I want to do it daily, monthly, weekly, bi-weekly, the 1st and the 15th? We can do this whenever you want. Just for simplicity, I'm going to do a month because we're using monthly numbers over here. And so we're going to say we want to do this on the last day of the month. So at this point in time, let's see, we got $3,000 that needs to go to our business expenses. So I'm going to say 3,000. And you'll always see this little button right here, transfer up to. What that means, I like to click it. Heaven forbid you don't have enough money to run one of these rules. Imagine at the end of the month, there's only $2,000 in there. Well, if we didn't have this checked, this rule would not run because there's not $3,000. There's not enough to run the rule. But if you click the transfer up to, it will take whatever it's got, even if it's not enough, and put it through that rule. So in this case, if there were $2,000, well, at least $2,000 is going to the business expenses. So that's that rule. You can also add a limit if you want to, meaning, okay, I only want to do up to $3,000 per year. It's not as applicable in this situation because we're doing a time-based rule, but imagine if you wanted to move 100% of whatever's left over after your rules into your saving or into your 401k. Well, there's annual contribution limits to the 401k, so we can actually set a limit, an annual limit on how much money goes into that account. But for right now, I'm going to avoid that because it doesn't really matter. Now, what I want to do is we're going to run through this situation. If the funds are less than $2,000, we want to pay ourselves $5,000. So I'm going to add another rule, and we're going to transfer a fixed amount of $5,000 into the owner's pay bucket. And again, I can transfer up to so that this rule runs in case there's only $4,800 left over at this point in time. Now, we're going to skip this rule real quick because I'll show you how to do it in just a moment. We want to make sure that 15,000 is in the business checking account and all of the remaining funds go into our business savings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click plus and I'm going to transfer a percentage, in this case, 100% into our business savings account. So when I click save, what we've got right here is our rule set up. Instantly, every time money hits, 30% is going to taxes. And then at the end of the month, on the last day, we have $3,000 going to our business expenses. We have $5,000 going to our owner's pay and everything else going to our business savings. Now, you could be all set there. In this case, we wanted to add another unique little twist to just give you guys an idea. You don't need to have this additional set of rules like if the funds are under $20,000, do one piece of actions, and if it's over 20,000, do another piece. But I do want to show that to you because it can be a really powerful piece. And we do that using conditions. And so in this case, I can add a condition where if the balance of my business income is in this case, less than $20,000, I want this set of rules to run. So if the balance of business income is less than $20,000, well, then it's going to do these rules: $3,000 to business expenses, $5,000 to owner pay, and everything else going to the business savings. And then if it's not the case, I get this little extra button, this if else option. If it's more than $20,000, what I can do is I can do again, duplicate these rules. $3,000 is going to go to our business expenses to mimic this rule. I'm going to add another rule. In this case, I'm going to transfer a percentage, 50%, into owner's pay because that's what we want to do, right? Looking back here, if else pay 50% of the remaining balance after the business expenses. So 50% goes to owner pay. And I could either create another rule or I can just simply add an account here and 50%, the remaining 50%, goes to our business savings. So now that we have that set up, I can actually test this. We have a rule simulation button right here. It's this little beaker. Simply click on it and we can say, okay, let's say it's $15,000. We want to run the simulation. And now we can see $3,000 goes to the business expenses, $5,000 to owner pay, $7,000 goes to the business savings. And if it's 25,000, I think this should work. I haven't saved the rule yet, so we'll double check here. There it is. So if it's over $20,000, in this case 25, still the $3,000 to the business expenses, but then it splits it. Half of it goes to owner's pay, half of it goes to business expense, or excuse me, business savings. So I click save, and just like that, we have it all set up. Now, the last rule here that we have not addressed, because we've addressed the 30% to the tax account, 3,000 to business expenses, and then this pay discrepancy. Do we want to pay ourselves $5,000 or do we want to pay ourselves half of it? We also want to maintain $15,000 in the business checking account. So here's a great little way to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag a rule from our business savings. I'm going to take it to our business expenses. Business checking, same thing. I should probably change the title just so that we're using the same terminology. But now what I can do is I can trigger a new rule by date. And now instead of doing it monthly, I want to do this daily. And what this is going to do is I'm going to click the action menu. And we've already tried the fixed amounts. We've tried our transfer a percentage. We have not tried these other pieces. I'm going to use top up because what top up means is it's going to look at the account and it's going to see, is it above or below what we want it to be? In this case, we want it to be $15,000. And so now every single day, it's going to look at that balance of the business expenses. And if it's below $15,000, it's going to top it up to $15,000 to make sure that we always have that minimum in there. And now this is the place where a good time to show you the add a limit rule is helpful because you might, for some reason, have drained it down to just $1,000. And maybe you don't want to be putting $14,000 into that account out of your business savings. You can actually create a limit where you're going to say, well, I don't want to spend more than $10,000 either per transfer. I could do that per week, per month, or per year. So maybe I don't want to dip into my business savings more than $10,000 in a week. I can click save, and just like that, I'm covered. So my taxes are set aside instantly every single month on the last of the month. The owner's pay is set aside either as $5,000 or half of whatever was left over after our business expenses. Business expenses are taken care of for $3,000 per month. And then everything else is being deposited into my business savings while I ensure that my business expense or my business checking account is taken care of. And just to show you, you can always change the title of these accounts so that you can keep it straight. You don't have to worry about just the last four digits anymore like you do on probably your current bank accounts. So just like that, we have it set up to show you the last step here. If you do want to keep using your accounts, you certainly can, like your Bank of America, your Capital One, or in this case, your USAA. You always have the option. All of our pods do give you the ability to issue a debit card, and you can either do a physical debit card or a virtual debit card. Virtual will be done instantly, and it allows you to, I guess I don't have my phone in, oh no, I do have my phone. You can add it to your Apple Wallet or your Google Wallet so that you can simply tap and scan, or you can request a physical debit card. Takes, I think, 2 weeks to ship out, just like this, and then you can stick it in, use it just the way that you can any other debit card. But if you want to stick with your existing, in this case, their owner's pay is up here. All we would need to do is simply click and drag to create a rule. And we can say every single time money hits the owner's pay, I want to transfer 100% of it to my personal checking. Or to show you a little bit more cool functionality, we could say transfer a fixed amount of $5,000 to personal checking, and I want 100% of everything else going to my high yield savings account. Just to give you some advice on the personal finance side. So hopefully that makes sense. I know I covered a lot right there, trying to be sensitive to everybody's time, but maybe Kevin, now is a good time for us to address the other question, and that'll give people some time to ask some questions of what they just saw. Oh, Kevin, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, for sure. I'm going to paraphrase what Clark wrote. Basically, we have some people who are watching via stream and they can't see what you guys are putting in chat. So we'll tee this up for Nick and let him take a crack at it. So basically, Clark's a financial advisor who's considering maybe rolling Sequence out for some of his clients. He was wondering about cases where someone maybe gets paid a lower base with commissions quarterly and
Love it.
what that might look like. So can you speak to that for a second?
Great. Okay, that makes me feel better too. He's a financial advisor. He's not asking me for financial. Okay, love it. Yeah, two different options there. And we work with a ton of financial advisors. We're just talking with a team of 80 yesterday because, being able to execute this strategy is such a helpful piece. Got two different options in that case. One is, I know when I was at Vanguard, we did get our bonuses. We could elect to have that deposited into a different account, or you could elect for different income streams from your job. So like your overtime, your bonuses, your whatever the different comp structures are to be potentially set aside into different accounts. If you can do that, wonderful. What I would recommend in that case would be to create a new income source and just simply, in this case, I'll turn it to the personal beneficiary. I would call this our bonus. Did you say it was bonus or commission?
Commission.
Okay, got it. So we'll say commissions. I really can't spell today. We create our income source. Now we've got this account, right? A brand new account that can be linked to, I don't know why names are popping up there. That's weird. We'll refresh. There we go. And then in this case, we can create our own set of rules. So maybe let me draw this up here. And maybe for commissions, again, Clark, great question. What we have some people doing is they would then start to create new goals. So maybe this is their vacation home that they want to set a goal aside for. Because again, when we're coming up with our goals that we want to accomplish, it's so much easier if we can set it into different accounts so that we can mentally visualize rather than that mental allocation of different funds combined into one singular account. So we got our vacation home, we've got our what should we say? Let's say family vacation. And then it's so funny that names are popping up there. So let's just say that we want to allocate some of the commission money for these pieces. And so what I would do is just say we want to trigger it by incoming funds. Kevin, can you see these? Like how family calendars popping up? It's like
Yeah,
my
I can
my Apple device is like trying to figure out how to set
get
money aside.
involved.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So let's say we want 25% to go to the family vacation account. We want another 25% to go to the vacation home. And then we're going to send the rest of it to our personal checking just because we're excited and we want to spend that money. So in this case, we could have that set up. So now the commissions come in, they're funding our separate goals, and then while some of it's going to a personal checking. That would be how we could do it. We could also set it up inside of their normal income account. In this case, I'll click here and using those same rules that we did beforehand. If there are W-2 and getting their commissions, it's probably their biweekly paycheck is really consistent. And so we could use that same conditional logic that we did up here. So if, in this case, the balance of this would be personal income is less than whatever they're getting on a biweekly basis. So let's just call it $5,000. If it's $5,000 or less, do set of rules A. And if it's more, meaning they got their quarterly commission check, then we could run a separate set of rules where it's setting money aside for the family vacation, the vacation home, however else we want to distribute it. So if they have a consistent paycheck, there's those two ways to do it. Either have the money go into a different income pod or income source, excuse me, and run their own rules, or if they're not able to differentiate where that money is delivered to, then we can create a condition to say, okay, well, here's how much I usually get paid. If it's more than this, then I want this different set of rules to run, which accounts for those commission dollars that they're earning. Does that make sense?
Does.
Okay, cool. Cool. And Clark, feel free to okay, cool. Yeah, you got it. Wonderful. Um, Great. So we've got that set up. Now, what I'll jump to, and again, anybody feel free if there's any questions on what we covered. I realize that was a lot right there, but just want to give everybody an idea of how it works. In this case, we've got a more simple setup where it's Mike and Lisa, kind of like a just a standard couple. They've got joint paychecks coming in. They want to make sure that their mortgage is automatically paid, that they're setting aside $300 a month for their child's college savings, 500 a month to travel fund, and left over to the emergency savings. Again, this is pretty easy process. I'm just going to drag down on my screen here, and we're going to simply create a new income source, and we'll call this joint checking, or excuse me, joint income. We're going to create that income source. Again, they could use either of these two options to get money into that account, either the salary deposit switch or change their direct deposit here. And then we're just going to simply add their new goals via pods right now, since I already have the accounts synced to a different account. We're going to set up our money pod, mortgage payment. We've got another one, child college savings. We've got our travel fund. And emergency savings and investments. And lastly, investments. Great. So now that we've got all this set up, we will stream these out. I'm going to put the travel fund down here, the college savings down here, mortgage payment down here. And then obviously what we're going to need is their personal spending is another one. Because we got to have some money to spend on a daily basis. So now that we've got these set up, all we need to do is simply click and drag and create these rules. And again, I made a joint income. My wife and I actually have two separate ones. So that combine into a pod that we just call joint income, just because my income is pre-tax, hers is post-tax. So we're treating it slightly separately. We want to make sure that my money has that money going to a tax bucket. But if it's two couples that are getting normal W-2 paycheck, that's not an issue. In this case, now we can simply start to click and drag. So in this case, let's say we want to send money to the personal spending. And if they're getting paid bi-weekly, we can either, again, do this by date, or we can trigger it every single time money hits. If they are getting paid on different weeks by chance, you might want to do this trigger by date because it's easier to create rules that are based around a lump sum money being in there. Because if one person's getting paid, if essentially if it's two couples, they're both getting paid bi-weekly, but they're offsetting weeks, then one paycheck is hitting each week. And if you're using full numbers, it might not work as well, right? Like if we want to send $5,000 to a certain account, well, you might not have $5,000 when just one paycheck hits, but after the second one does, the week later, then all of a sudden you have enough. So in this case, I might use the trigger by date, and we'll do this. We can say bi-weekly. It'll automatically do it, and we want it to run on Fridays. In this case, we're going to do personal spending account. We want $3,000 to go into their personal spending. Again, we can transfer up to. And now I can just start creating the rest of the rules. In this case, we could have their mortgage being $2,200 into their mortgage payment. And we obviously want to click transfer up to. They certainly should have more than that. What other rules do they want? They want $300 a month into the child savings, college savings. Then we want $500 a month into our travel fund. Sorry for the dead air time. I know that's not ideal. There it is. And again, I'm hitting these up tos just in case there's only a couple dollars left. We want to make sure that whatever's left is going there. And then after that, we want everything else going to the leftover, the emergency savings and the investment. So I can do this a number of different ways. I'm going to actually click the transfer percentage and we'll say we want 50% going to our emergency fund, emergency savings, and I'm going to add another account and I'm going to send that to our investments. And so just like that, when I click save, now we've got that full set of rules running. And again, I can test it by going back into my rule simulation. We can say, okay, what's it look like with $10,000? We run that simulation, 3,000 to personal spending, 2,200 to the mortgage, 300, 500, and then $2,000 to both emergency savings and our investments. And again, all we need to do is click and drag this to the end account. So if they have an investment, in which case, let me actually drag that down just so you can kind of see it. In this case, what we'll need to do is drag this over and trigger by incoming funds. We want 100% go into, this case, this is the 401k. I'll change it to the Roth IRA so it makes a little bit more sense. And that money is going to be there. Now, one thing to note, whenever you're sending money to both investment accounts and liabilities, there is an extra step because we can send money to those locations, but it doesn't mean they necessarily know what to do with it. So, if it's Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab, you name it, whenever that receives money, you're typically going to have it going into some type of cash account or a holding account. You need to make sure that you go into that system to be able to tell it where you want that money to go because it'll be getting money, but at the same point in time, it won't know what to do with it until you set up those rules. So you want it to do a 50-50 split between the two different funds you're using, or Clark, you as the financial advisor, that's one of the, you'll be able to help them understand what do we need to do to set up that money to go where it needs to go ultimately and buy the right funds. So that's one piece. A last piece when it comes to our liabilities. Let's take a look at this real quick. When it comes to our liabilities, I'll just sync this up with our personal spending. When I connect this, we can trigger this by date since we pay our liabilities on a monthly basis typically. We want to do this on a monthly basis. Let's say the credit card is due around the 5th. Well, what you have here is when you connect it to a liability, you're actually going to see a number of different pieces. You're going to see execute debt avalanche, debt snowball, pay current balance, pay a percent of the liability, pay the minimum payment due, pay the last statement balance. So what you're going to want to do is select that correct option, but there is an additional step, right? So now we're going to be sending money here. Let's just imagine it's $410. But again, unfortunately, these credit card companies, liability loan companies are not in a situation where they typically like to receive money. What they like to do is pull money, right? Whenever you set up your account, whether it's a credit card or something else, they're always going to ask you, where are we going to pull this bill from, right? For your auto pay. So what we have done is we've connected our own little sequence account. You can see that information right here to each of your liabilities. So this is the information that you will need to give to your credit card in this case in order to pull that money from it. So don't worry, we give you tons of warnings anytime you add a liability or you sync it up. You'll see a big banner up here saying, hey, there's one more step you need to do. You need to go into your credit card. You need to give them this new account information because this is where they're going to pull the money from. So that is one important step because they're not used to people just sending them amounts of money. They want to be able to pull money. So we're trying to sync that up and be able to fund this account for you so that your balance or whatever you're going to be paying can be pulled from that account. Hopefully that makes sense. Kevin, any questions so far? We have 6 minutes left before you have to run to graduation. I want to make sure that I'm addressing kind of the key pieces.
I haven't seen anything new pop up, but if
Okay.
you guys have questions, I did drop a reminder in the chat that if you guys have got something for Nick, like, and the other thing is like, I totally get that maybe not everybody wants to raise their hand in a public demo, which is totally fine. We'll give you ways to reach us after at the conclusion of today, but if you've got something that you're trying to figure out or that's burning, we do have time to address it if you want to try and get it in.
Yeah. And what I'll say until we have anybody else hop in there is a couple things, like from a best practices perspective, start small, right? That's the biggest thing. Just start to get comfortable. It could be just starting to fund your emergency fund. That is an easy way. You don't need to go to 100% optimization day one because it can feel too daunting. So just start with a baby step of getting money into the income source and then thinking about what do I want to accomplish? Do I want to pay down debt? Do I want to save more money? Do I want to open an emergency fund? And just start with that one singular baby step so you can start to feel and understand how it flows. That would be my recommendation number one. Recommendation number two is, and everybody's debt situation is entirely different. For my family, what we did is we have about 60 different recurring expenses every month, from daycare to car payment to insurances, you name it. Instead of, I did not sync any of our liabilities to our account because I didn't want to be sending money to 60 different places. Like that just felt too daunting. What I did in our own personal map, similar to down here, I actually created a different pod. I went through our entire budget because I use Rocket Money as well, just to get an idea. And I actually created another pod that was our recurring expenses. And in our case, that was about $20,000 a month. I know it's crazy. Hopefully yours is less. But what I did there is then I created a rule. And I'll show you here. Create another rule. Transfer fixed amount. In my case, I use top up to top up the recurring expenses. Where are you? Top up recurring expenses to 20,000 or fill in the blank, whatever you want to do. And I would drag this up because remember, these rules are going to run in order of how they are appearing. So I actually did this. I did pay ourselves first. Actually, no, you know what I did? I made ours the first one. So in this case, well, maybe I can't grab it right now. Anyways, I set up a new recurring expense account and then went to all of our providers and just gave them this information, the routing and the account number, so that they would pull from that account. Because I know that over the course of the year, it averages out to, X per year or X per month. And so I top that up every single month to make sure that money's in there. And then they're just all pulling from it. That way I can keep my bills out of my personal spending, which to me and our family is so much easier because at the beginning of the month, the account looks great. But then if you got that many bills coming out, all of a sudden by the end of the month, you're like, where'd all that money go? So for me, I would much rather prefer to set my money into a expenses account. And then what's in my checking account, I know that I can actually spend. That's how much money I have for the rest of the month, as opposed to trying to remember when different bills like the mortgage, the car payment, the insurances are coming out.
Hey, Nick, we do have a couple of quick
Yeah,
questions. I'll take them out of order.
sure.
First to Liam, who asked, "Can we send out the replay of the call today?" Sure, Liam. What I usually do is trim off the top where we gap for a second, and then so this needs to compile after we finish, and then I need to make a slight edit, and then I'll send that around to everybody that RSVP'd for today's event. And then secondly, Ori asked about being eligible and how do you go about confirming being eligible for a 2-day early direct deposit timeline?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know if Tara or
Tara,
Colin are still in here,
I think
but
Tara's here. Tara, do you want to
okay.
take that?
She might be able to do it in chat as well. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know
I
the
think it and I'm I won't speak for Tara, and if we don't get an answer in the time that we have left, Ori, then we'll send you a follow-up directly, but I believe that it backs out against your lending institution, right? Or like your banking institution. So with some of them it's possible, and actually frankly like who you work for. So it's like with some companies it's easier to do than with others, but I don't hold me to that. Let's confirm that through
yeah.
customer service.
Yeah. We'll make sure. And that's, support at getsequence.io is our support team that it's always accessible. So we'll make sure to get you that answer. And maybe you can DM either myself or Kevin your email address via the chat just so that we can make sure to get back to you on that, Ori. I saw one more thing from Clark. Plaid is not the only aggregator. We use three different ones. I'm not the technical side, so I can't remember some of the other options that we've got there. Okay, there's Ori's as well. I can't remember what the other ones are, but we can get that information for you as well. But yeah, some banks are easier. Fidelity is certainly not one of the easiest, just when the security settings that they have and how often they want to disconnect. gotta love. Clark, I don't know if you use eMoney. I was a big eMoney user, but nothing more frustrating than breaking connections. But we've fortunately had a lot of success in a lot of those different areas. So um, we'll make sure to get that for you. Well, Kevin, it's 12:45. I don't want to be the one who's holding you back from graduation. So
Yeah, no, it's all good. Here, I'm gonna drop something into I'm just dropping a link into the group chat, and then we'll also include this in the follow-up note that I send around to everybody later today. That's just a link where we talk about 2 days early pay in the knowledge base. So that'd be a pretty good place to start if you're trying to figure out whether or not you're eligible to get receive 2 day early pay. And we do update those articles every so often. So one way or the other, we'll get you a definitive answer, Ori, and then we'll probably also, as part of that, ask you um, for a little bit more information on your specific situation, so we can nail it down.
wonderful.
Thank you.
You bet. All right, guys. Well, I guess as we tidy things up here, I'll give a quick shout out to the we have community presence in Discord. We have one in Facebook. We've got a small one in Reddit. Any of those places you can ask questions regularly, and we monitor them on a regular basis. There are a lot of smart cookies, especially in our Discord community, which is pretty sizable and growing. And then, Nick, what's a good way if folks have a question for you that they'd like to follow up?
I would say shooting an email if it's a technical question, support at getsequence.io is probably the best way to make sure that eyeballs get on there so that we're helping everybody get taken care of.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. Like I say, we'll send around a recap recording of today's event, and thank you to Nick for taking us through as always. If you continue to have questions, please reach out. We're happy to help you.
Wonderful. Great to see you. Enjoy graduation.